What's happening, everybody? Welcome into Daily Betslip for Wednesday, May 11th. Ben Heisler, Peter Dewey, producer and director Joanne Stoner with us. Fun show today. If you've joined us before, you kind of know the general gist of the rundown, but a little bit of a fun, different surprise in the middle of the show. Peter and I are going to, of course, go through our best bets coming up in about 5-6 minutes. Our daily bad beats, to which, Peter, we have two of them from both last night that we have to be able to go ahead and get off our chest and try and figure out what the hell happened. We are going to set some odds for the top NFL leaked schedule games. Of course, the NFL schedule comes out on Thursday night. We already know what all the matchups are going to be, but we finally know some of the times as to when these teams are going to be playing. So Peter and I put on our odds maker hat, and we're going to see whether or not we can come to a consensus line together. Should be a fun exercise. Hopefully you guys will weigh in on YouTube as well as on social media at BetSided. And of course, it's the game of the night, Bucks versus Celtics. Celtics at home in Game 5, Peter. Possibly another home team following a fairly interesting trend, which we'll get to as well. If you want to vote on who we should be taking in that game of the night, you can do it in a couple different ways. You can go to @BetSided on Twitter, find the poll, make sure you go ahead and vote, or you can head onto our YouTube channel right here. If you're on YouTube, just go ahead and search BetSided. You can find it right from the get-go. It's streaming live, and go ahead and weigh in on the poll here. They are -5 on the game today, and the total last time I checked, Peter, total looking like it's at 213.5 for the matchup tonight. So with that being said, I'm going to apologize in advance. I ate some I made myself like a spicy noodle dish for lunch. And I don't know if you've ever had this happen to you where you eat something spicy, and normally like I tolerate spicy food really well, but like there's that thing in my throat that's just kind of like hanging on for dear life. It's like you shouldn't have eaten all this chili oil and mixed in with the pasta salad. So apologizing in advance. I don't know if this is something that you can relate to at all.
Little bit. The thing I think for me is like one of my roommates loves he like will cook some like really spicy stuff, and then like it gets like wafted throughout the apartment, and then you just get like the cayenne pepper and you're like, oh my God, I want to cough. Hate that feeling. But he's also a very good cook, so I don't mind it because it always makes the apartment smell very nice. So
Are
but
you
yeah.
typically a spicy food guy, or do you
Yeah.
typically stay away from it?
Yeah, no, I'm a big spicy food guy. Basically put hot sauce on like not everything, but a lot of stuff. Buffalo sauce, and then like yesterday, I made some burgers, put some jalapenos on there. Like I'm a big to the spice food. We gotta taste it, man. That's the thing, you know.
Right. You don't want to overdo it. You don't want to, like, if you're doing a chili or something, you don't want like the 5 alarm chili where you can't even
Yeah,
taste the chili anymore. I'm with you.
exactly,
So
exactly.
I think a little bit of the chili oil still hanging around. Hopefully we get through this together. But I do want to start with not just one, but two bad beats from yesterday. I'll have you go first because this one impacted you the most. And we're talking about Game 5 between the Philadelphia 76ers and the Miami Heat. Of course, congrats to the community. They ended up going with Reed Wallach last night on the show, taking Miami -3. I, of course, was the guppy in the pool full of sharks. Thought Philadelphia would hang tough. Did not get the job done. But Jimmy Butler, oh so close for you, and yet he left you hanging just when you needed it most.
Yeah, it's been a weird stretch for me in NBA bets because I was really hot to start the playoffs, and then I had like a brutal stretch, and then got back to the last 2 nights. I'm like 5-2, so I was like, okay, this is good. And Jimmy Butler, I had him over 38.5 points, rebounds, and assists last night, and he looked well on his way. He was playing fantastic. Had 38 with like a little less than 9 minutes to go, and the Heat were up 29. Eric Spoelstra pulled them out of the game, and that was all she wrote. Jimmy Butler didn't have to come back in, so missed that by half a point. That was tough because just was wishing that Spo would maybe give him 2 more minutes so he could like grab a stray rebound and then be like, all right, Jimmy, you get out. But it's the nature of it. It was. I think the tougher part is it wasn't a blowout entering the fourth quarter where it was like they're going to need to pull these guys, and then the Heat went 18-4 to open the quarter. And you were just kind of like, okay, I guess this is just the way this one's going to go. But it also helped me a little bit the way the game went because I had James Harden's under PRA, and he also came out and didn't come back in. So take the good with the bad. But Jimmy being so close, like it's one of those frustrating points. I know you know this, Ben, where like you handicapped the game correctly and you're like, I
Yes.
knew this was the right bet. And it's like the game just got out of hand. And like that is like something that's so hard to factor in. Like you're never really factoring in for like a 29-point blowout. So that was tough. But
It's hard to factor in a 29-point blowout when the game was listed at 3.
exactly,
Right?
exactly.
So
It's supposed to be a close game.
it was supposed to be a close game. The Heat were without Kyle Lowry. I had talked about the significance of them not playing with Lowry and not having him at 100% the other night. So from that perspective, yeah, like you think that this is someone that's going to get in a ton of time, and he was well on his way. But then the blowout happens, and all of a sudden you're left wondering, how am I going to try to hedge this situation? So rough beat for you. Hopefully a bounce back opportunity tonight. I was not on this game, but I did mention that anybody who has been betting on the Cincinnati Reds lately, you've been off to a really, really nice start in the month of May. They have actually been, along with the Baltimore Orioles, one of baseball's best bets on the run line in the month of May. And they did it again last night. Not only did they end up winning on the run line, +1.5 against the visiting Milwaukee Brewers, who ended up winning the game 5-4. But if you had the under in that game as well, it was currently a 3-1 game. Heading into the top of the 8th inning, the Brewers ended up scoring 2 runs to make it 5-1. So still the under of 8.5 feels like it's firmly in grasp. Brewers have one of the best bullpen arms in all of baseball, but then they go ahead and give up a 3 spot to the Reds to make it a 1-run game. So if you had the Brewers on the run line as well as the under 8.5, you lost both of those bets. As a result of the Reds getting on the board 3 different times. Tyler Naquin double ended up scoring both Tommy Pham and Mike Moustakas. And that was all she wrote. So 2 rough bad beats in the books for Tuesday night. Hopefully none of you have to experience any of them today. And with that being said, Pete, I think it's time that we get into our best bets for the night. We like to break things up a little bit, go back and forth. I've got one from each different level. I got an MLB play. I got a WNBA play for tonight, as well as an NBA prop. I know that you're looking almost exclusively props, 1 in baseball and 2 in the association. So let's trade off on our baseball picks. Tell me who you like first of all when it comes to the Diamond tonight.
Yeah, I'm taking Ian Anderson under 4.5 strikeouts against the Red Sox. There's a little bit of juice on this. Is -140, but you look at the way Ian Anderson has pitched this season. He's gone over this number in only 2 starts, and he's only punched out 18 guys in 24 2/3 innings. So you're facing a Boston team that's actually really good at avoiding strikeouts. They only strike out 8.07 times per game, and Anderson's had multiple starts this year where he's only had 1 strikeout. So I think there's a nice, like, you're going to find the middle ground here. Like, he's not going to have the 7, but he's also not going to have the 1. I just don't know if he gets over 4.5. He hasn't been going deep into games. Has 1 start where he made it out through 6 innings. So if he's only going to throw 5 innings, 5 1/3, and you're facing a Boston team that only strikes out 8 times a game, maybe he gets 4. Maybe he doesn't even get there. I just think the Red Sox, their offense is starting to look a little bit better. They got a big win yesterday. So I think this is a spot to fade Ian Anderson here. Normally when I take the over on strikeout props, like, you want to see the consistency. The under, you're not going to see nearly as much consistency because there's going to be those outlier games. But when you see a guy's Ks per 9 as low as his is this year, I just think the move here is to take the under and just bite the bullet with the juice.
Yeah, and the thing about the Red Sox is I know that they had a really nice night against Kyle Wright last night, and actually one of my props on the evening was the Kyle Wright over at 5.5, because that's somebody that at home had a dominant strikeout per 9 innings. But the Red Sox are bottom 10 in the league in strikeout rates on the positive side. And I figured, okay, this is someone that's been so dominant at home. He had only given up 1 earned run in 19 innings last night before going into the game, and gave up, I believe, 6 4 2/3. So did not get the strikeout prop. And if Boston all of a sudden starts to figure some things out offensively, because they've been a mess on both sides, both on defense, pitching staff has been atrocious, and the offense has just been nowhere near levels of expectation. That might be a team that could be a little bit hot right now going up against somebody like Ian Anderson. So I certainly like to play on the under, and I know that the juice has reflected that as well. I am going to go over on a strikeout prop tonight for my favorite MLB prop of the night, and that's Shane McClanahan of the Tampa Bay Rays. Peter, it's not often that somebody like McClanahan goes a bit overlooked on a slate. But he's also going up against Shohei Ohtani tonight in LA. And whenever you go up against Shohei Ohtani, it could be one of the game's elite pitchers. You're not going to be the main build discussion point for that game. But I think he's somebody that is in a really good spot to be able to climb over this number. You have a lefty that's dominant, 95th percentile in strikeout percentage. He's also in the 92nd percentile in whiff percentage over at MLB StatCast. He's actually faced the Angels before, and he struck out just over 33% of that roster the last time he played them. And even though the Angels have had some success against left-handed pitchers, they still are amongst the top 8 in baseball in strikeout rate this year. McClanahan can kind of fly under the radar a little bit. I know he hasn't gone the distance that he'd like in a few games as of late, and he's also hit this prop in 4 of his last 6 games, but the last 2, he's just gone under at 5. So to me, this feels like a nice opportunity for a bounce back, good opportunity to have some competition in Ohtani from the other side, who's striking out, 14 batters per 9 innings.
Crazy, insane stuff.
Yes. So again, I don't know if that's going to last. I kind of poo-pooed Reed's pick for Ohtani as AL MVP at only 2-1 odds, not because I don't believe in the value of the player, but I just don't believe in the value of the number right now. Mm-hmm. But he's a stud, and I think if you're McClanahan and a stud on the other side that's not getting the same type of attention, that fires you up a little bit. So I think 6.5 is more than reasonable to get to that point tonight.
Yeah, I don't mind that at all. Like I said, I like when you can see the consistency with the over and the strikeouts. 4 out of 6 is pretty darn good. Going into a game like this would be a nice little pitcher's duel. And I mean, like, the Angels are not known for pitcher's duels with the way that they've played the last few years. Their pitching has not been that great. So having a little Ohtani McClanahan matchup tonight, a little change of pace for Angels fans. I kind of like it.
Yeah. So that and it should be a really fun game. Like, we were having some internal conversations about whether or not we wanted that to be, our game of the night, but ultimately just too much excitement right now between the Bucks and the Celtics in what has really turned into a fairly compelling series. Let's dive into a little bit of WNBA. We actually had our first WNBA pick from last night. We took the under between the Aces and the Washington Mystics on our debut for WNBA picks. And so far we are 1-0, and I'm going to go back to the under machine and take the under between the LA Sparks and the Atlanta Dream. This to me feels like it sets up at under 161. It doesn't feel like a high number to climb, but if you look at both of these two teams, Los Angeles right now, they're very impressive when it comes to their points per game, 92.5 so far. But I think you have to start to look a little bit closer into opponent points per 100 possessions. We always talk about offensive and defensive rating when it comes to evaluating, some of our NBA bets. And I think the same applies towards the WNBA. So I went over to her hoop stats and I tried to look, and I saw that Atlanta, they've only scored 66 points per game in their first matchup. They're also 1-0. They gave up 59 points per game. Conversely, Los Angeles gave up, 84 points. So it looks like LA is going to go run and gun. They're going to be up tempo, and the Dream is going to slow things down. But when I looked at both of their opponents' points per 100 possessions, and again, I just think it's a better way to truly evaluate both offensive and defensive performance. Atlanta, no surprise, they rank first, give up 65.6 points in opponent points per 100 possessions. But Los Angeles, the team that scored a ton of points, gave up a ton of points, actually averaged, they're actually 4th in the WNBA so far this year in opponent points per 100 possessions. So this leans more towards a defensive type game because you actually have 2 top 4 defensive teams in rating as opposed to looking at purely points per game. So 161, again, it's a bit of a low number compared to the rest of the games on the slate. But I'm going with the ratings and I'm going with the metrics here. And I feel like that sets up a little bit better to be able to hit, especially at Atlanta, where they can set the tone and pace a little bit. Mm-hmm. I like the under once again, second straight under here on the show.
I don't mind that at all. I think one thing I know I'll be watching for in this game, Ryan Howard, the Dream's first-round draft pick, is just absolutely fantastic. She is unbelievable. So if you are looking to watch some, like, high quality women's basketball. I believe she pushed like a triple double in her first career game. Like she's the real deal. So one of the like best young women's basketball players we have. So definitely, if you're looking to watch some basketball tonight, that's one of the things you should definitely tune into for sure.
Yeah, and she actually got off to, I mean, she put up 16 points in that game, but actually didn't shoot particularly well. Only shot about 27% from the floor. She's going to get it going eventually over the course of that season. Only just shot 4 of 15. But part of the other thing, she also made 4 3-pointers in the game as well. So when you're shooting really well from outside, I mean, she's going to be the focal point of that team. So yeah, Ryan Howard, very, very interesting play over for the Dream tonight. As for the NBA, I know that I have one, you have two. I'm going to let you handle both of yours, and then I'll follow up because you're looking at two on the Memphis side, and I got one from Golden State. So go ahead and kick things off. Where do you like on your props for the NBA in the late game between the Grizzlies and the Warriors?
Yeah, so I'm going to start with Desmond Bane. I'm taking him under 16.5 points, and this number has just been steadily dropping throughout the entire playoffs, and that's part of the reason why this is at plus money. It feels like Desmond Bane is like due to bounce back, but he's dealing with a back injury, and he has not looked like the same player in this Warriors series. He's really struggled to get open. When he has been open, he hasn't been knocking down shots. He's shooting a pretty poor percentage on the field. Hasn't scored more than 16 points in a game in this entire series. He's actually had 3 games where he scored single-digit points. So I think this is just this line. Odds makers are kind of banking on him getting back to that level he played against the Timberwolves. I just don't know if he has it in him with the injury. And with no Ja Morant, there's less playmaking and ball creation to get open shots for Desmond Bane. Saw Dylan Brooks really dominate the ball in game 4, and I have a pick on him as well. I don't think that bodes well for Desmond Bane. You look at what he's done in the series, averaging 9.5 points per game. And on top of that, he's taking just 8.8 shots per game. So you guys have heard me talk about this on BetSlip, on Bet and Breakfast. I always look at volume when you look at these player props. Like you need to take guys who are going to have the opportunity to reach these numbers. Desmond Bane's only taken 8.8 shots. You're asking him to hit 50% of his shots minimum to even have a prayer at hitting this prop. I just don't see that happening with the way he's played in this series. The Warriors have the number 2 defensive rating in the NBA during the regular season. I don't want to read too much into playoff numbers because it really depends on matchups. So Golden State, I think they run away with this game 5, and I don't see the value in taking Bane at like a juice number to go over when he hasn't done it all series. I'd rather take plus 100 for him to continue going under this number.
It's surprising, especially because, like you said, he was so good in the series against Minnesota, but it's apples and oranges when it comes to, the quality of defense that he's facing, right? Like Golden State was a top 3, I think top 2, if I'm not mistaken, defensive rated team in the NBA during the regular season. Against Minnesota, that was a team that was always going to go up tempo, and the series against the Grizzlies dictated that as well. And also, they needed Bane more so in a lot of those comeback wins, where all of a sudden he started shooting the ball really well. But there's
the
been
back injury hasn't helped either. Like he just looks he can't create his own shot right now. Like watching those games, like he looks like he's just strictly catch and shoot. And like there's only so much he's gonna be able to do catch and shoot when they're not leaving him open. Like you don't have Ja Morant to drive and pull the defense in. So that's the other thing I think is really important with this prop.
Yeah, and again, 4 3-pointers attempted, just 4 in his final game. He only took 8 shots. He's had 2 out of his last 3 games of single field goal attempts throughout the course of it. So I'm with you there, especially if this is going to be over from Golden State. We kind of have a similar type of situation that we saw in Tuesday night with back-to-back blowouts. Maybe this is another top opportunity where Taylor Jenkins gets his guys out of there. And it becomes a bench game for the rest of the way. So Desmond Bane under at plus odds over at WinBet at plus 100. Who else do you like in this game?
Yeah, so I'm taking another under. I'm going to be Mr. No Fun tonight, especially if you're a Grizzlies fan. I'm taking Dylan Brooks under his PRA. It's at 27.5. And I looked at this prop for about 30 minutes today, trying to tell myself maybe I should go over, and I just can't do it. Dylan Brooks, you look at what he's done in these playoffs. And yes, last game he had 12 points, 8 dimes, 5 rebounds. Was at 25. So he was very close to this number, even though he only shot 5 for 19. And we talk about volume. Dillon Brooks has seen plenty of shooting volume. He's just shooting terribly. He's had a 3 for 18 game in these playoffs. He's taken 19, 20 shots and missed this prop. So, like, here's what I did, Ben. I looked back and looked at some of his games. Dillon Brooks had the one game he went over in this postseason, he scored 24 points, had 3 rebounds, 2 assists. You look at some of his other games in these playoffs, he had 24 points in game 1 against the Timberwolves. He finished with 26 PRA, 1 rebound, 1 assist. Then he comes back in game 6, game 4 and has 24 points again on 20 shots, had 2 rebounds, 1 assist, goes under the number. So you're asking Dillon Brooks basically to have a monster scoring game to hit the over on this prop simply because he hasn't been putting up the tertiary stats. Game 4 against the Warriors was like the outlier of this entire playoffs. And maybe he puts up a few more in the secondary numbers because Ja Morant's out. But at the same time, he hasn't been shooting the ball well. You can't get behind a guy and ask him to be around 20 points when he's shot below 40% from the field the entire playoffs. I think the Warriors are keying in on him and Bane, and they're basically daring anybody else to beat them. So I love Dillon Brooks on the under here. I just think looking at what him and Bane have both done, and it's kind of why I'm taking, it's like you can only like try and go against the grain so long. Like if they're constantly going to hit the under on this prop, like just go for it. Like just keep playing it until it fails. So that's kind of what I'm doing with both of these tonight.
Yeah, as far as Brooks goes, like you mentioned, some of the numbers really have just gone into a tailspin in the last few games against the Warriors in this series. And I think the foul trouble needs to be concerned for him as well. You know, he had 6 fouls in the final game against the Timberwolves. He had 5 in the 1-point loss to Golden State. So when he's active, and again, this is someone that took 19 field goals in the previous game, but you have to watch out for Brooks, especially if he gets into foul trouble early. And just the aggressiveness, especially from the scoring, isn't there. The assists, obviously, and the rebounds were highs for him in this series, but just 12 points isn't going to get it done. So I like both of those plays as well on the Memphis side. As for me, I'm going to go with another over here and take the over on Andrew Wiggins' rebounds. This feels like, for somebody who spends a lot of time on the outside part of the court and trying to drain a lot of 3-point shots. Do you know how many rebounds Andrew Wiggins, just off the top of your head, do you know how many rebounds he's been averaging in the series?
I know he had 10 last game. I don't know what the exact number is for the series, but I know he had a good rebounding game in game 4.
Yeah, 7.5.
Wow.
He's averaging 7.5, had 8 rebounds in game 1, 9 in game 2, and 10 in game 4. The only time that he had a bad rebounding performance was a 3-rebound game back when they blew him out by 30. And that's when his minutes went all the way down to under 26 for the game. But the other ones was 34 minutes, 38 minutes, and 39 minutes. What's been interesting to me, and I want to give credit to Brandon Anderson, who I saw this come from. We thought Memphis would be a team that would be, probably the more physical, a little bit bigger inside for Golden State. The Warriors have dominated them in rebounding the entire way of the series. Like entirely, they've been more physical. They've beaten them in the post. And it's really, really hurt Memphis because they just haven't gotten second chances because Golden State's just been pulling down tons of rebounds, and Wiggins has been a key reason why. So the fact that this is already another situation where the Grizzlies are going to have to just give everything they have. And I know that it's a large line in this game, but I do think Memphis is going to push it as much as they possibly can. If the Warriors just say the hell with it, we're going to blow them out, maybe that takes it out of play. But if it's a close game, the entire way through the series, Peter, Wiggins has been on the positive side of this prop, and I expect him to do it again tonight.
I love this play a lot. I love it for 2 reasons. The first one is the Warriors have played the Grizzlies out of like their game. Like they basically said, we dare you to match up with us when we go Jordan Poole, Andrew Wiggins, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green. And Taylor Jenkins was just like, yeah, I mean, we're going to have to. And probably rightfully so because Steph, Klay, and Poole are just so dynamic. But that's also put Andrew Wiggins at the 4 with smaller lineups where he's just been able to dominate on the offensive and the defensive glass. And you look at the way the Grizzlies have played, Jaren Jackson Jr. hovers around the 3-point line a lot on offense. So that gives you a lot of opportunities for Wiggins on the defensive glass. And I know that they played Steven Adams in game 4 without John Morant. I think that also benefits Wiggins because if the Grizzlies go big, Andrew Wiggins has to be on the floor for the Warriors. So you kind of are getting the best of both worlds in this series with him where they can't afford to play without him no matter what the lineup is. So like you said, as long as it's not a blowout, I think Wiggins is a fantastic bet to go over 5.5.
He's just somebody that I think strikes a lot of people too is not, a willing rebounder. Like I give him a lot of credit. Like Wiggins entering the league, even as a number 1 pick, was not necessarily known as the guy that was going to be a dirty work type player. Mm-hmm. He's completely changed, I think, his perspective
for sure
coming to Golden State and really embracing his ability on the wing to be a really strong defender and also get inside on the glass and get a bunch of rebounds. Like long term for Wiggins, I think he's going to get himself a lot more money directly as a result of this season that he's had this year.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree completely.
By the way, the kid Bob, I think it's the kid Bob Chills checks in. It says PD fades. I'd love to know, if you want to weigh in again, where you're feeding, where you're going to fade Peter tonight, because the 3 bets that you threw on the board, I'm planning on tailing most likely. So if you have a specific, the kid Bob Chills, please go ahead and let us know, because I'm be very curious, because the NBA plays from Peter especially have been red hot. And then you mentioned both of us had our daily dinger picks come through over the last couple of days. That's also something that you can find over at BetSided every day. The entire editing team goes through and selects our favorite home run props of the day. You can also find best bets, player props for NBA and Major League Baseball as well. All that's available for you over at BetSided. So let's do something.
My guy, Bob. Got to shout him out for tuning in. Appreciate him.
Yeah. But I need specifics here. You got to tell me.
I know. Hey. Let's see. You're right.
All right. So I want to do a little bit of an exercise with you, because we've already started to see several of the NFL games pop up when it comes to the schedule release. And this is something that happens every year. They always say that you're going to find out the full schedule and when teams are playing. And before we get to that, Peter, I just saw that you have a little bit of breaking news ahead of tonight's Bucks Celtics game. Yeah,
Ime Udoka just announced Robert Williams is out again tonight with left knee soreness. So have not seen that adjust the line. It's still at 5 at WinBet. But something to keep in mind, if you were targeting any Al Horford props, probably the way to go. He's going to have to play a ton of minutes tonight, and we will talk about this more in game of the night, but just something to throw out there for anyone looking at that Celtics-Bucks game.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And again, Horford was great, but and he's going to get the minutes again, but I'd maybe advise treading lightly. If you're only the second Boston Celtic to score 30 in a playoff game at the age of 35 or older, and the only other guy is John Havlicek, chances are I don't know if that's going to necessarily happen for the second straight game. It's possible, but
it could happen.
I don't know if I would necessarily jump in. So Robert Williams out again for Boston. Very, very interesting news. All right. So as I was mentioning before, we wanted to do a little bit of a different exercise here, because the NFL schedule is going to come out Thursday night, and we already have a set of several leaked games to the public. And a lot of them are fairly intriguing as far as some of the more noteworthy games. We've mentioned that there's 2 Monday Night Football games coming out between the Titans and the Bills in week 2 and the Vikings and the Eagles. We know the London games between the Vikings and the Saints, the Giants and Packers, and the Jaguars and your Denver Broncos. There's going to be a game in Mexico between the Cardinals and the San Francisco 49ers. There's a Christmas game this year. We know the first Thursday night game. So I'm curious. We went ahead. You and I did not share our lines.
No, not at all.
So we're going to have a little bit of a back and forth, and we're going to see, first of all, where you guys want to weigh in on this. So definitely go ahead and hit us up. If you're watching at BetSided, make sure you head on over to YouTube so you can get in on this conversation. Love to know how you would handicap some of these games. But we're going to go over 3 different matchups here. The Chargers and the Chiefs is the first Thursday night football game in week 2 at Kansas City. In week 10, you have Mike McCarthy going back to Green Bay to take on Aaron Rodgers and the Packers in week 10. That game is at Green Bay. And then in game 3, the Denver Broncos, your Denver Broncos, go up against the LA Rams on Christmas in Los Angeles. Okay. So with that being said, let's start with game number 1. Chargers and Chiefs, week 2. What's the spread? What's the total?
I got the Chiefs -3. Okay.
That's just -3. Okay.
The spread. So I looked this up. Last year when they played on Thursday Night Football late in the year, Chiefs were 3-point favorites. That was with Tyreek Hill. Obviously, now they no longer have Tyreek Hill. I think the Chargers have improved defensively. I wanted to move this to 2 or 2.5, but then I thought Chiefs at Arrowhead laying less than a field goal. I can't do that. So I would set it at 3 and let it have it be bet and see where the public thinks it's going from there, if that makes sense. But I think 3 is the right number. As for the total is a little bit tougher. I said 48. Thought like around a 24, 21, 27, 24 type of game was kind of what you would probably get in this matchup. So that's what I had.
See, give me that total one more time.
Yeah, 40. I had 48. I was going to go 48.5. I just said flat 48. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you and I are on very different ends here. If this is my book, I'm not letting the public just pour all of their money onto Kansas City because that's where it's going to come in. So I actually set this at -4.5 for Kansas City at home. Okay. I bumped the total because people love to bet overs on Thursday night, even though historically the under has hit substantially. So I'm going to let the public go ahead and ride that probably to 51 and have the sharps maybe bring that back down to the other number. But I set it at Chiefs -4.5 and a total of 50.5 for this game. These two teams especially have been known to get into some shootouts. Mahomes and Herbert have a little bit of a back and forth rivalry going. The Chargers have actually gotten the better of Kansas City in some of these games before. We have the last time they played back in Los Angeles, the Chiefs won 34-28. The over is hit, I believe, in both of the last 2 games that they played. The Chargers ended up upsetting Kansas City at Arrowhead in September of last year. I don't know if you can bring it up to higher than 51. And I know that the Chargers got the best of Kansas City before, but they got off to that slow start. I think they'll be prepared. And so I feel like 4.5 is probably where I'm going to go. Do you think we can meet in the middle here, or are you hard set on that 3?
No, yeah, I could be in the middle. I just think I might be factoring a little too much. Like, I think there's a little Kansas City regression without Tyreek Hill, both offensively, hence the lower total. And then just like the Chargers defense is a lot better. They got Khalil Mack, they got JC Jackson. Like, I really like the Chargers, what they did this offseason in terms of like trying to build a win now team. So that was kind of the thought process behind mine. Maybe I'm factoring offseason moves in a little bit too much. But at the same time, like they did close as 3-point favorites the last time they played. So that was kind of my thinking. But I'd be fine with like 3.5 or 4. I think that's fair as well.
All right. So I will go ahead. You know what? I think the move on the Chargers defense, and especially them winning at Arrowhead last time out, Chiefs losing Tyreek Hill, Chargers really not losing anybody fairly substantial. I'll meet you halfway. I think let's go Chiefs -3.5.
Okay.
You had it at 48.5. I had it at 50.5. Why don't we do Chiefs -3.5 with a total of 49.5?
Works for me. Perfect.
Okay.
We can do this as a job, Ben. I'm telling you.
We should. Yeah. For any of the bookmakers that are listening, if Peter and I can help you out and
we'll help you out.
Our knowledge. We're certainly here for that. So KC -3.5, total of 49.5. Nice midway point for that one. All right. Game 2. In week 10, the Dallas Cowboys on the road against the Green Bay Packers. There's a lot of different factors at play for me, and I'm trying to take out my anti-bias against Mike McCarthy in determining this line, but I'm having a very difficult time. So go ahead and play the role of honest bookmaker here. What do you have this line set at?
Yeah, maybe I factor too much off season. I have Packers -4.5. I just don't know how good the Packers are going to be without Devontae Adams. Their receiver room really changed. Like, the defense will probably be very similar. Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers, but like losing Devontae Adams is a big deal. So I had them only as 4.5-point favorites, but I also don't think the Cowboys really got better this offseason. Like, they lost Randy Gregory. They traded away Amari Cooper. I actually had a similar total. I had this one at 48.5 as well. Just because I just don't like, maybe the defense is a little worse for Dallas, but like offensively, I feel like both of these teams got worse. So that was kind of the way I looked at it. Um, Maybe I just love the number 48.5, but like I couldn't get it to 50. And like that was where I was just like, you know what, maybe I got to take a step back. But interested for your thoughts.
All right, 48.5 and Green Bay -4.
Well, 4.5 minus 4.5.
Oh, -4.5. Okay. Um, that's where I wanted to go. I
Okay.
really wanted to go with Green Bay -4.5 because I think anytime you get Mike McCarthy, I'm almost always an auto fade, and that did not work out for me. It did not work out for me last year because the two most public teams in the Dallas Cowboys and the Green Bay Packers were actually two of the best covering teams in the NFL a season ago. I set it at Packers -3.5, but a very high total. I had the total at 51.5.
Okay. I would be fine with 3.5 if I'm being honest. I just like, I thought Packers at Lambeau. I was like, I don't know if I could do that, but I would personally be fine with 3.5 because that was my initial thought, and then I bumped it up a point. So I would be fine with that one.
So week 10, it's not going to be super cold yet. Prescott has had issues in the past in cold weather. It'll be like, let's see, how does week 10 set? Early to mid-November. So probably in like the 30s or 40s or so. So not terrible. And obviously, I think dependent on the weather, that's going to move the line a ton here too. Honestly, we could probably put it to 4 for Green Bay and feel pretty secure there. And again, if the weather's going to be super nuts, then that total's going to go way down. If this game was in Dallas, like I would be comfortable setting it at, a pick 'em at like 53.5, because I think both teams
it would definitely be more high scoring in Dallas.
At Green Bay, I think makes it entirely different. But the other reason I think that I would have the line a little bit shorter towards Green Bay, the NFC East schedule for 2022, all 4 teams, Peter, have the easiest schedule in the NFL based off a win-loss record from a season ago. And the Cowboys are like right up within the top 2. So I could see Dallas once again getting off to another killer start. Packers are going to have some difficulty along the way. It is also a very winnable division for them. But I think Dallas might try to sway some people with a record that they probably don't deserve. And I think that might sway it a little bit. So that's why I had it at -3.5. But again, a little bit later on in the season at Green Bay with colder weather, I think we can bring it up to 4, maybe do 4, Packers -4, and a total of, you had 48.5, I had 51.5. What do we go? Why don't we go with an even 50?
Yeah, that works for me. I like that. I like
Green Bay -4, total of 50 is the deciding factor here for game number 2. And then last one, game number 3. And I'm probably going to defer to you on this because this is your team, the Denver Broncos. Russ Wilson going on the road to LA. You know how Russell Wilson always enjoys his time in Hollywood. Gets to go up against the defending Super Bowl champion LA Rams in Week 16 on Christmas. Let me go ahead and give you mine first, and then you can tell me where you differ on here. So I think Denver has still some issues, especially on defense. Like their defense, a lot of folks are just assuming that because Russ came over there, that the defense is going to start to pick up. But from a DVOA perspective last year, their offense actually was better than their defense. Defense had all sorts of issues, and they're still missing some guys that can get to the quarterback. Secondary is going to be tested a little bit. And again, against the Rams, that poses some issues for me. So I like the Rams at -5 in this game at home with a total of 48.5, because I still trust the Rams on defense. Even though I expect Denver to put up a little bit more points than we're used to seeing from them. So Rams -5 on Christmas, 48.5 is the total that I'm setting.
Okay. I had Rams -4. And part of it is I think the Broncos defense was bad last year because Alexander Johnson and Josie Jewell, their 2 starting middle linebackers, were both lost to the season by week 5. So like they were like basically plug and playing guys at one of the most important positions on the field. I also think the addition of Randy Gregory really helps their pass rush. Like, remember, they traded away Von Miller last year. Like, they kind of just like let the defense slip. Kyle Fuller got hurt. Or, sorry, not Kyle Fuller. Ronald Darby got hurt. He's going to be back. I think my bigger thing is I just think the Broncos are going to have more to play for in Week 16 probably than the Rams are. The Broncos are probably going to be, if they are as good as we think, they're going to be in the thick of the playoff race. They're not going to be running away with a playoff spot with the way that division is. The Rams may have 1 foot already into the NFC West title already. So I could see Rams -4, maybe 4.5. I just don't think this is like as clearly cut and dry. I think the other thing is like season goes on, injuries, like we could definitely see it change. But I'm going to give the Broncos a little bit more respect here, strictly because I think they're going to be playing for more at this point. I think the Rams may already have their positioning locked up. And what'd you have the total at again? Sorry.
I had the total at 48.5.
Okay, I don't mind that. I had it at 47.5. So we're both in the same ballpark for that.
Okay.
I think a little bit lower scoring because I think the Rams defense is very solid.
All right. So you had Rams -4, 47.5. I had Rams -5, 48.5. I think this is an easy solution here. We go Rams -4.5 with a total of 48. And that meets us right in the middle. So there you have it. So for 3 games, the 3 that we consider to be the most interesting league games on the NFL schedule, just to recap it, Chargers and Chiefs, we both agreed on Kansas City as a 3.5-point favorite in that game with a total of 49.5. Game 2 on our list was the Dallas Cowboys going to the Green Bay Packers in Week 10. Set that line at the Packers -4 with a total of 50. And then the Christmas game between the Broncos and the Rams in Week 16. We met in the middle, Rams -4. Rams -4.5, total of 48. I feel pretty good about those. Like when those game lines come out, I do want to go back and see if we were completely and totally off our rocker there, or if we were spot on. Because if we were spot on, maybe this is something that we do again. Get a little leverage along the way. So
you never know.
With that being said, let's get into the game of the night, and the game of the night that just got very, very interesting, especially with no Robert Williams for the Boston Celtics tonight. So over at WinBet, latest look at the odds for Game 1 of the doubleheader tonight between Milwaukee and Boston. Game 5 at the Garden. It is back to a Celtics 5.5-point spread. We talked about it after the Robert Williams move of him not playing, that the line had moved to -5, but it has since actually gone back up in favor of Boston. It looks like sharps are back on that again. It is Boston -5.5. If you want to take them on the money line, it is -225. Bucks come in as a +185 underdog on the money line tonight. So just under 2-to-1 odds. And the total right now sitting at 213.5. You and I both have player props for our best bet of the game. But before we dive into those, give me your initial thoughts on the matchup and if you have a lean towards a side or a total.
Yeah, so I bet a Celtics Warriors moneyline parlay today. It was in my best bets column. You can find that over at BetSided. I think the Warriors roll tonight, and I think Boston. I looked at a stat that our guy Reed Wallach found. Home team, in Game 5 are 90-22 since the 2010-11 season, straight up. So I don't know if I'm brave enough to lay the points with the Celtics. I probably won't. I do think they win, though. And the way I've looked at this series, Ben, and we've talked about this a little bit, like Boston's really only played like 3 good quarters in this entire series, and it's still tied 2-2. Not having Robert Williams hurts them depth-wise. Like you're going to see a ton more of Grant Williams and Al Horford. But at the same time, they got away with it on the road in Game 4. Granted, with a great Al Horford game. But if you're the Bucks, I just don't like their offense has been horrendous. They can't get anything from anyone, Giannis or Drew Holiday. And Giannis and Drew Holiday are not efficient with their scoring right now. So I lean with the Celtics to win this game. Obviously, not a great value bet at the current price for it, but that's what I took. I parlayed them with the Warriors. So I just think if Boston has a semi-decent shooting night, there's just too much there for the Bucks to handle. Like Rob Williams, he does matter defensively, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, he has not looked himself since coming back from that knee injury. Like, he's looked like at half the player that he probably was during the regular season. So yeah, you're going to have to stomach some ugly Daniel Tice minutes tonight, but I just don't think it changes that much for Boston in the long run. Like, they're just going to do the same thing they've done against Giannis, throw the same guys at him. And I think after winning game 4, I feel like this is Boston's game to lose by far.
See, I like Milwaukee at +5.5 to me, just because, like you mentioned, there have been just a few instances where Boston has really taken control. And I just don't feel like that sample is going to hold off. Like, I get the rationale behind the fact that a lot of things have not gone their way, and yet here they are tied the series at 2-2. But I also think, like, at some point you have to go with the team that's been better. And Giannis still hasn't, like, he's had moments where he's taken over some games, but like Milwaukee still hasn't been able to make consistent shots. Their 3-point shooting has not been there compared to what we saw from them before. In Boston, you mentioned game 2, like, that type of shooting just isn't going to hold up. Milwaukee's still, like, from a defensive standpoint, they've actually been by far and away the best defensive rated team in the postseason, and it hasn't even been close. Like, for as good as the Celtics have been in the regular season, that hasn't been their forte. And Milwaukee, up until game 4, I believe, had played in 8 straight unders over the course of the entire postseason. So I think you're going to see another close game here. I think Giannis is going to keep them hanging around, especially without Robert Williams to help out inside. And again, if the double team comes, if Milwaukee starts making some of these outside shots, which they are capable of doing, then I kind of like them here. I don't know if I like them money line. But certainly, like, when it comes to sort of their value in the series, right now you can get them to win the series at WinBet at +170. Like, I think they can hang around, especially if they win today. Those numbers are going to flip in a gargantuan fashion.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, now you're looking at some key value on the other side. So I might jump on Milwaukee to win the series at +170, and maybe consider Milwaukee at +5.5 tonight as well. And especially Milwaukee wins, then you have a really fun situation where you get plus money on both sides. So I do think Milwaukee keeps it close.
They made shots in game 4. Like, Wes Matthews had a really good game. Grayson Allen made some shots. It just came down to, like, Giannis and Drew Holiday did not play well. And Boston's defense is the reason they're not playing well. I know that the defensive rating numbers don't look great in the playoffs, but it also depends on matchups. I mean, the Bucks got the Bulls, who didn't have Zach LaVine the last game. That the Bulls stunk that entire series. So their defensive rating is going to look a lot better than Boston, who had to face Durant and Irving, and did the same things to Durant and Irving in terms of making them super inefficient that they're doing to Giannis and Holiday in this series. Like, I feel like this is kind of the Celtics MO. Like, they're like, we're going to make somebody else other than the 2 best players beat us. And, like, Giannis was good enough in game 3 to win that game for Milwaukee, scoring 42 points, but they fell apart in the fourth quarter when they couldn't get him going to the rim, and Drew couldn't hit any shots. And Mike Budenholzer also scares me, because Pat Connaughton got banged up at the end of game 4, and Mike Budenholzer's immediate reaction was to go to George Hill. And Jason Tatum hunted George Hill the entire fourth quarter and just dominated him. And so I'm a little nervous. Like, Boston's rotation is short without Rob Williams, but at the same time, it's all quality defenders. On the Bucks side, you can't say the same thing. Like, if Wes Matthews gets in foul trouble, or if Pat Connaughton isn't the same guy, like, I don't know what Bud's adjustment is. They didn't play Bobby Portis in game 4 because defensively it wasn't matching up well. And it's like, you lose his offense, and now you're substituting a defender who's probably just as bad as him and even smaller in George Hill. So the Bucks are in some trouble here. I don't hate having them to cover. Like I said, I don't think I'm brave enough to lay the points with the Celtics. I just don't think Milwaukee, like, they needed to win game 4. They had game 4 in control and they blew it. Yeah. And so now I'm kind of like, this is the Celtics series to lose, and at home with that's a crazy stat, 90-22 straight up. I have to think they're going to win tonight.
Fair enough. All right. So we're on opposite sides. We'll find out where the community is going in just a couple minutes. I know that they've weighed in on the poll on YouTube as well as at BetSided. That's been retweeted back into the Twitter sphere. So you got a couple more minutes left to bet on it. Of course, as part of the show, whatever the community decides, Peter and I will place a small wager on the community's behalf in that one. They went with the Heat -3 last night. That one ended up cashing. So let's go into our actual best bets for this game, Peter. We're both looking at a player prop. Who are you starting with? And I'll go ahead and wrap things up once you're done.
Yeah, real quick on this one, I'm taking Drew Holiday over 20.5 points. And I know I just talked about how Drew Holiday's getting locked up, but the volume is there, which is like my number one thing. He's taking crazy amounts of shots in this series, Ben. He's taking 20, 20, 30, and 22 shots over the first 4 games of this series. They need him and Giannis to have a good game to win. Like that's their formula is those guys have to play well because they really just don't have any other like guaranteed scoring around them. So if Drew's going to take that many shots, 20.5 is not too bad of a number. He's already gone over that twice in the series. One of the games he missed it, he had 19. He's only shooting 37% from the field in the playoffs. I feel like he's due for a little bit of positive regression there. So 20.5 is low enough for me to take it. But at the same time, like if he shoots 5 for 22 again, I would not be surprised because that's the way this series has kind of gone. But when you get that much volume, it's almost like you just have to take it. Like so many shots, man. It's crazy.
A lot of shots. I don't mind that play at all. Again, just at some point the volume has to cash in, and it actually kind of goes well with a play that I have as well because they actually correlate very well together. I'm going with Brook Lopez to go over his rebounding prop, over 5.5. It's at minus 130 the last time I checked. He's averaged over 8 rebounds per game. He's averaged and hit the over in all 4 games of this series. And I saw this note from noted daily fantasy analyst Sal Vetri. And I want to give him credit for this because I think it's a fascinating look into Lopez and this prop for tonight. So he's averaging 8.3 rebounds per contest. He has seen in this series 14.5 rebounding chances per game. What Vetri points out is that 53% of those chances have been not contested. They've been completely uncontested. He's basically been alone. And half of his rebounding opportunities, if he has, 14.5 chances, that's more than 7 right from the get-go. There's nobody there. And that's been a consistent number over the course of the series. So already you're looking at the over, and that's basically him just standing by himself. So especially playing up against Giannis, those are opportunities that continue to be available for him. It's a bit surprising to me, Peter. Like, honestly, there's a part of me that makes me wonder, like, what am I missing here? Why has this number for Brook Lopez continued to stay at this 5.5 play? To me, this feels like just sets up so well for him, especially in a physical slow down type series where they're using him consistently on the court and getting plenty of those rebounding opportunities. Like his minutes this postseason, as Vetri points out, have gone up 27%. He's playing good defense. He's spacing the floor well. He's taking some 3-point shots. I got to tell you, man, the 5.5 just feels like it's right there for the taking. This has been my biggest wager of the postseason so far. Like I put multiple units on this bet just because I feel like it's set up so well. So we'll see how I end up mushing myself into that play. But I really
like it.
Lopez.
I like it.
Boards.
I like it a lot. He's going to have to play a lot for them defensively too. Like they went away from Bobby Portis because he wasn't giving them enough defensively, which means we're going to love Brook Lopez. He's played well in this series. So I like that a lot, especially with no Robert Williams. Him and Giannis are the 2 biggest guys on the floor. So it's a good spot to back both of them rebounds wise, but Lopez at this number, so low. I like it a lot.
All right. We do have our community pick in, and Peter, last night they sided against me, and that was a good decision. Tonight they're siding with me. They like Milwaukee to cover that 5.5. They're going against our NBA insider and Peter Dewey, who again you're not betting on Boston at minus 5.5, but that's your lean. Same with me on the Bucks plus 5.5. But we will go ahead and place that small wager on behalf of the community on Milwaukee plus 5.5. So again, best bets for tonight. Peter is going in this game with Drew Holiday over 20.5 points. I'm going with Brook Lopez over 5.5 rebounds. The community show bet from the Daily Betslip for today is Milwaukee plus 5.5 going up against the Boston Celtics. So that is our show. Appreciate all of you guys hanging out with us here on the Daily Betslip. Fun stuff coming up later on in the week. We'll have Ian and Donovan hosting the show at 5 p.m. Eastern time on Thursday. Also, make sure you guys stick around for Jab Cross Hook with Ian McMillan, Amy Kaplan, and Reed Wallach. That's going to be at 7 p.m. Eastern time tonight. They've already had a couple of winning fighters on the show, Pete. So who are they going to get? Who are they going to get next? It's going to be another fun episode. Make sure you guys stick around for that right here on BetSided's YouTube channel and also at BetSided on Twitter. For my guy Peter, I'm Ben. Shout out to Joanne Stoner, our producer and director, for another job well done. We will talk to you tomorrow on a brand new edition of Daily Betslip. Make sure you guys stick around once again for Jab Cross Hook at 7 p.m. tonight. So long.